Have you ever been in a conversation with someone where, on paper, everything's fine? They're looking at you, they're responding, but underneath there's this gap, like a thin, invisible wall. They're hearing the words, but they're not actually getting you. And you find yourself doing this subtle translation in your head, simplifying what you think, editing your reactions, trying to become a version of yourself they can understand. And then you walk away and you're just tired. Not because it was a difficult conversation, but because you realize yet again you weren't really there. I've noticed there's a name for that feeling, and it's probably not what you think. If you're someone who grew up with this as this quiet background hum, the sense of being slightly out of step with everyone, you've probably collected a lot of labels for it over the years. I know I have. People tell you you're too sensitive, that you overthink everything, that you need to come out of your shell. Or maybe the labels were more clinical. Introvert, socially anxious, neurodivergent. And okay, those words might fit, kind of, but they never quite capture the full texture of it. Because the feeling isn't that you're broken, it's that you're operating on a different frequency and nobody seems to have the receiver for it. But here's what I've come to realize, and I didn't see this for a long time. That frequency isn't a mistake. It's not something you need to fix. That sense that no one truly gets you, it's not just a social skills problem or low self-esteem, it goes deeper. It's about how your brain learned to make sense of the world and what it actually costs you to stay connected to people who process things differently. In psychology, there's this concept called intersubjectivity, which is just a fancy term for something really simple, the feeling of shared understanding. You know when you're with someone and you make a joke and they catch it instantly, or you express something and they reflect it back in a way that feels exactly right. That's it. It's like mutual mind reading. And I think it's one of the most basic human needs. Babies look for it in their parents' faces. Adults need it in friendships and relationships. It's what connection is made of. But for some of us, that connection never quite forms properly. Not because we can't connect, but because our internal world is more layered, more crowded. And this is where it gets interesting. There's research on something called sensory processing sensitivity, and it basically shows that a chunk of the population is wired to process information more deeply. You pick up more from your environment, subtle shifts in someone's tone, micro-expressions, the whole emotional mood of a room. You also process your own inner experience with more complexity. So by the time you've arrived at a feeling, it's not one note, it's a whole chord. And when you offer that chord to someone, they often only hear a single note. They simplify you without meaning to. And when that happens over and over, it becomes a very specific kind of loneliness. You weren't asking for too much. You were just offering something nobody had learned how to receive. This isn't something you chose. I didn't choose it. It's not about being difficult or wanting to be mysterious. It's an adaptation. Most likely you learned early on that your full experience was too much for the people around you. I know I did. Maybe as a kid you'd express something with genuine intensity and you'd get a blank stare, or they'd change the subject or gently tell you to calm down. So you learned to filter. You learned to scan the room for what was safe to show. You learned that connection means leaving parts of yourself at the door. And you got so good at it that now you do it automatically. You preemptively edit yourself just to make others comfortable, even when they haven't asked you to. And look, this isn't about being superior. It's tempting to think you're just deeper than everyone else, that they're all shallow. I've been there. But the truth is more neutral. People are just calibrated to different levels of detail. Some people look at the horizon. Some people are staring at the moss on the forest floor. Neither is wrong. But the person looking at the moss can spend a long time feeling like nobody sees what they see. And the person looking at the horizon genuinely might not understand why anyone would stare at the ground that long. But here's the part I don't hear people talk about much. The very wiring that makes you feel unseen is also what lets you truly see others. Because you know what it's like to not be received, you often become a really good receiver. You notice the flicker of sadness someone tries to hide. You hear what they mean beneath what they say. You give people the kind of attention you've always wanted for yourself. And in those moments, you get a different kind of connection, where you're the one doing the understanding. And that can feel good, honestly, but it has a hidden cost. You can start to feel like a mirror for everyone else, reflecting them back to themselves, while nobody's holding up a mirror for you. You weren't weak, you were just overloaded. So here's the paradox. The very depth that makes you feel invisible is also what makes you capable of a kind of presence that's actually pretty rare. The cost is that you sit with this ache of not being met. But that ache isn't a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a sign that you're trying to connect from a real place in a world that often settles for surface. And that takes more energy, it takes more courage, and it means you have to keep showing up even when the gap feels wide. If any of this lands for you, maybe consider that the feeling of being misunderstood isn't a life sentence. Maybe it's just a sign that you haven't found your people yet, the ones who speak your language. And finding them usually means you have to stop translating yourself so much, to let the full chord ring out, even if it scares some people off. Because the ones who stay, the ones who hear the complexity and don't flinch, they're the ones who are looking for you too. And there's more to that about what happens when you finally stop filtering, when you stop scanning the room for safety and start trusting that your frequency was never the problem. It was always the solution. But that's something to explore another time.